Well, if it couldn't get any worse, it just did. So this may be the last chicken we see. It's incredible. So I've told you that the government is really cracking down on farm animals, meat products. They don't want us having meat, and so they're trying to price us out to the point that we can't even buy it in the stores hardly. I mean, beef prices, I don't even look at it anymore. It's just ridiculous. It's useless to even spend time looking at it. The president just said that when you calculate inflation at the store, that you don't calculate it for eggs and meat, you calculate it for cereals, especially for like a breakfast item. He was talking about, I guess, breakfast, and that Americans aren't concerned about egg prices and meat prices. They're worried about cereal prices. So what you got to do when you go shopping, instead of buying the name brand flakes, is what he said, I think, I'm not quoting exactly, he says you have to go buy the generic, and that'll bring down your cost and pretty much ends inflation that way. Woohoo! Well, me, I don't eat cereal, I don't eat sugar products, I don't eat carbs, I eat meat. And I think a lot of Americans eat meat. I mean, they eat a lot of bad stuff too, but I think they also eat meat. I know when I go to the store, there's a lot of people gathered around the meat aisle. I don't see a lot of people in the cereal aisle, at least people my age and older. So I guess that's a good way to take care of inflation, is simply redefine what you eat. But they just recently redid the food pyramid. I don't even think it's a pyramid anymore. But basically, meat is the last thing on the thing that you're not even supposed to eat. It's terrible. But they actually include sugars and candy, and I mean, it was just garbage. I don't even remember what it was all. I think cereal was cornflakes. It was ridiculous. They want us to redefine what we eat on our meals. And this kind of makes sense because they want us to get away from eating meat anyways. They've been trying to push us into the vegetarian diet for years. Well, now they're even trying to get us away from vegetarian diets because the fertilizers they use is harming the planet. I think it's nitrogen, don't quote me, I don't know. Nitrogen is getting released into the atmosphere, and that's how, causing the climate change scenario. It's something that the fertilizers are releasing. So now what they want to do is natural fertilizers, compost. But you can't get enough compost to be able to do that kind of fertilizer. And if you're getting compost, aren't you having to raise animals to do it? So how does that work? Now we're hearing that they're going to be feeding us lab-grown meat. And I noticed in the comment section, people don't know what lab-grown meat is. They kept talking about Beyond Meat, Beyond Burgers. That's not lab-grown. That's a vegetarian meat. It's plant-based meat. So it has a lot of soy and that kind of thing. I'm talking about, they're currently in production, supposed to be released this year. They're going to take a sample from an animal, a living animal, and cultivate that cell. And they're going to grow it in a lab. Well, I guess it'll eventually be a manufacturing process. Get this is even more disgusting. Apparently there's a company, or companies trying to develop or getting money to develop, where they will take sample from your favorite Hollywood star, sample of their tissue, and then they'll cultivate that meat so you can taste your Hollywood star, your favorite star. That's nasty. I mean, Soylent Green, remember Netflix movie back in the 70s, Charles Heston? Soylent Green, what were they eating? What was Soylent Green? It could turn into that, where we're just eating each other's cultivated cells. Oh, it's nasty. And then Aldi's, apparently in Europe, is interviewing a company to buy worms or crickets or some bug. So they're going to try to start selling bugs. I don't know how far they are into that process, but they are interviewing this one company. It's a startup company. And the reason they're wanting to do it is because Aldi's is a reduced price store. Since meat prices are getting so expensive, they have to find an alternative to meat. So, bugs. And apparently a lot of Europeans are really pushing this. I've seen video after video where they're tricking kids into eating bugs. They're like potato chips made out of cricket flour. Kids eat it, oh, this is good. What do you know, it's a cricket? Oh, okay, whatever. But as we know, chicken prices has skyrocketed this year. Now, and I've been trying to preach to you to get chickens all summer long. I've been trying to preach to you, and I don't know if that many people did it. I know my mother did it. That was really exciting that she got her chickens, and she's starting to get eggs now. That's really awesome. Ours have slowed down on egg production because they're going through their molt right now. But we got all our incubated chickens. They're laying now in our Brahmas, so that they were raised from babies this year, and they're starting to produce eggs, so that's kind of making up for the ones that are molting. But as you know, last spring there was a bird flu outbreak, and it hit everywhere, just Missouri and Georgia and Iowa, Ohio maybe. I'm not sure about Ohio. It was up in the tens of millions of birds that had to be culled, slaughtered, because they tested some birds and they had bird flu. I would imagine farmers are like, okay, no problem. Either they're getting government subsidies when they do that, the government tells them to kill their chickens, or their insurance pays off. So to them, it's like easy work, no problem. When we saw that during the pandemic, the government was paying farmers to get rid of pigs, to kill off pigs. So now we see egg prices and chicken prices going through the roof. Last spring, we buy this 10-pound bag of chicken and we can it. And we buy about 3 bags per trip. So every month we get 3 bags. That gives us 20 jars, pint jars of chicken. And last spring it was 49 cents a pound. So for a bag it was $4.90, which is actually the lowest I'd ever seen it. Well, then over the summer it shot up to $7.90 per bag, or 79 cents per pound, which still wasn't too bad. It was 10 cents higher than I'd ever seen it before per pound. Wasn't terrible. I mean, inflation, and that was kind of expected with all the chickens being slaughtered. Well, my expectation was the prices would come back down for the winter. That's what they typically do, is they come down, because these 10-pound bags are just frozen chicken thighs and legs. So it makes for a good barbecue. Well, in the wintertime, you're not barbecuing, so it seems like every year they drop those prices about this time. Well, they didn't this year. Instead, they raised it up again to $9.90. So from springtime till now, October, we went from $4.90 to $9.90. So that's a $5 increase per bag of chicken. Now, a lot of people saying, oh, that's still a good price for chicken. And I agree, it is a great price. Except most people don't buy it, because what are you going to do with it? You just throw it in your freezer. You have to thaw it out in order to cook it, and then you got to cook 10 pounds of chicken. What are you going to do with 10 pounds of chicken? That's why we can it. But it was completely expected. And I know a lot of people talk about egg prices. I haven't seen a huge increase in egg prices. But then again, I wasn't buying eggs when all this started. You know, we get our eggs from the chickens, and we get enough eggs to eat every day. Now, I know a lot of people seem to think I need to preserve my eggs. We just don't operate that way. We don't want to operate that way. If you preserve eggs, there's a risk that you could lose eggs. So we try to produce enough eggs that we can have every day for our lunch and sometimes for supper. Hopefully next year we'll be able to eat eggs primarily twice a day. That's what we're really shooting for. Now that brings down our food costs dramatically, because now we're not having to buy meats. So now for next spring, I was expecting the chicken prices would start to come back down. That's what I was really hoping for, because that bagged chicken, I like canning it. I just found out that an unseasonal outbreak of bird flu just hit Iowa. Unseasonal, unusual, strange. What is that? They were using all these words like, so to me it's, call me a conspiracy theorist, that's fine. It seems like they're doing it on purpose. What my understanding is the Department of Agriculture will come in, test your chickens, and they won't even show you the results. They'll just say you got bird flu and you have to call your chickens. Well, up in Iowa, they just called, I think, 1 million chickens. Don't quote me. So over the last year, throughout the United States, they have called 40 million chickens in less than a year. So we can expect this outbreak is just going to take off. Now, they're not even talking about what the sources are this time. At least in the spring, they were saying it was from the big birds, you know, geese and ducks flying over. My problem with this is when we went and bought our Brahmas this last spring, when we went into the hatchery to buy it, we weren't even going into the chicken area. We were just going to the counter. And they had a rug there that you could smell the chlorine. They put chlorine on the rug. It was kind of neat how it worked. I never saw one. But it was specifically 2 sections. One section had the chlorine water, and you stepped on it, and the sign telling you, please step in the chlorine water. And then the next step was the dry surface, where you could dry your feet, and then you could walk to the counter. And that was supposed to kill the bird flu, because bird flu is transferred through the droppings of birds, big birds, and then you walk into your confinement and you spread it. Well, all these farmers would have known to do that. If the hatchery knows to do it, the farmers know to do it. So how are these chickens catching the bird flu? They're inside a confinement, and so they're being sanitary, cleaning their feet. I would imagine they probably even put on body suits just to make sure that nothing is on their body dropping off, you know. So I'm sure all these precautions have to be taken when you go into these. I mean, think about all the regulations we have in the United States. Can you imagine them not regulating farmers? Of course they regulate them. I'm guessing, I don't have the specifics, but if you do it in a hatchery, you certainly would do it with 1 million birds. So I was telling you last year that if you had flocks in the state of Missouri, over 50 birds, they were coming around and checking out your birds to see if they had bird flu. Again, not showing you the results. They'll just tell you, oh, I gotta get rid of your chickens. Well, that's why we try to keep ours covered so no droppings are falling in it. And we're gonna try to stay under 50 birds so they won't even bother us. Now, the thing is, our roosters now, with the Brahma roosters, they don't crow hardly at all. I haven't ever heard them crow. Well, we only got 1 rooster now. It's not like everybody's gonna hear that we have chickens. My goal is to kind of keep this a secret so nobody's coming around seeing if we got 50 chickens. That would be pretty devastating to us if the government told us that we had to slaughter our chickens. It would really increase our cost. But what I'm suggesting is, it may be too late to do it this year, but I would seriously suggest that the first spring, May time frame, go to the hatchery and get yourself some chickens. They're not hard to raise. You can find all kinds of information. I've got videos on them. All kinds of information how to raise them. You go to the hatchery, they give you a pamphlet on how to raise them. Keep them warm and feed them and show them where the water is, and that's about it. And in 8 weeks, you're bringing them outside because, well, 1, they're too big for the house, and 2, they've got enough feathers they can come out and withstand the cold. If you get them in May here in Missouri, by the time 8 weeks roll around, 6 to 8 weeks, it's already warm outside, so it's no big deal. So if you'll click this up next box, take you a video where I was talking about water. They won't let us have that either. So I hope I can inspire you to get away from the grocery stores so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.